Today is Friday, the 22nd of November, 2024, and this is part 2 to the video that I posted yesterday titled, When Santa Wants an Upgrade, Metro FiberNet and the City of Norfolk. Here is the link to this particular video if you have not yet watched it. I want to share with you footage of the infrastructure work as it is today as I read through my comments on this particular post. Donald Trump said that he was going to build a wall, domestic electronic fencing, and that Mexico would pay for it. And he did it. It is migrant workers, especially illegals, who have done most of these infrastructure installs. As a side note, for the duration of both the Russian-Ukraine conflict and the Israel-Hamas conflict, there have been periods of negotiated ceasefire for agreed upon time frames, a weekend, a couple of weeks, a month. And at some point over the last few years, I remember thinking that they negotiated one of these agreements conveniently during the holidays, and it pissed me off. I journaled, why in the hell can't they just stop the war? When you consider the purpose and function of war, can you explain how that makes sense to you personally? I do not wish ill will for Donald Trump. He is one man. This is bigger than that. Timing is everything. Remember Kristallnacht. Please do not give these militia mobs a reason. They are lawless and irrational. And Kristallnacht is a reference to the German purge, which was different than the riots that happened when Rodney King experienced police brutality in the 90s and the retaliation in communities as a result of that. Kristallnacht was very much so like the movie The Purge, and it was the beginning of them being able to move people into concentration camps under martial law. Norfolk houses the largest naval base in the world and is a NATO Allied Command Center for the Atlantic as of 2018. It makes any conflict here international. Remember that too. You must restore justice. Otherwise, civil war is inevitable. And because the individuals connected to microfiber.net are in Yorktown, I shared some content relative to the battle at Yorktown that occurred in the late 1700s and then again in the late 1800s in Yorktown, Virginia. I also mentioned in the video yesterday that I wanted to compile footage of all of the infrastructure upgrades as I had recorded them and uploaded them beginning in January of 2023. You can find that footage at the beginning of this particular video, which is an hour and a half long because it includes the full conversation I had with the Chief Resilience Officer for the City of Norfolk back in 2022. The short version for people with a short attention span can be found by watching this particular video. Now I'd like to move on to some supporting information to the documents I shared in the microfiber net and City of Norfolk video that I shared yesterday. So you may need to reference those documents to make additional sense of what I will share here now. I don't think people truly understand what the word justification means, nor what it means to be justified. Half of the battle has been helping people to understand their rights as human beings and helping them to give themselves permission to do the right thing, regardless of what the guideline, policy, ordinance, regulation, or law says. So you're marking gas lines because what now? The city of Norfolk is having your water line dug up. Okay. We live in a litigious or legalized society, both in our government and in the religious institutions that surround us. We are constantly being forced to prove something, even when it is completely obvious to anyone who will take the time to actually look at it. The dividing line for a justification is always your intent. Yeah, I know, but I mean a permit to have our water line dug up or whatever it is they're doing, do they? It's their water meters and their right of way. Oh, okay. If you are truly trying to do the right thing and it violates some human-imposed rule or stipulation, then you will always be adequately prepared to rationally explain why you took the action you chose to resolve whatever the problem was you were facing that caused you to make that decision. I'm going to show you clips from the city council meetings that are supposed to meet the requirements of issuing these kinds of franchises, in this case, a telecommunication franchise agreement. And what I want you to consider as you look through these things is the point that I made in the video yesterday about how businesses contract with the city to do things like install this infrastructure using their own money, their own resources, their own equipment, that then ultimately whatever it is they install becomes the property of the city. Remembering that the city is not just the ground, it's also the people who live here. And since we're talking about contracts and business transactions, any contract or business transaction where money is exchanged, the money should go into the treasury for the benefit of the citizens who live here. And it should be under the agreement of the city's residents that the infrastructure is installed in the first place, because we should all collectively agree, well, this would be good for us as a city, and we all agree collectively that we want this here, and collectively we see an opportunity to be able to share in financial resources that will support the needs of the residents who are living here. Of course, that's not how this is being approached. And for the most part, people are not even aware of how these processes happen or how the bids occur or what happens to the money. So there should be an accurate recording of any revenues that are received as a result of the profits being made by infrastructure that is installed within the city, even if ultimately the city takes over control of that infrastructure to then offer franchise licensing or agreements to other businesses. Keeping in mind that if the city then generates revenue based on offering these franchise agreements, again, that money should go into the treasury for the use of the quality of life and care of the citizens. It shouldn't go to the politicians. It shouldn't go to any other businesses, anything like that, because it belongs to the city. It's the citizens agreeing, we're going to allow this to happen, and we're going to move natural resources like the ground and the air to be able to make room for them to put this stuff up. But we see a benefit in it and we want to have it here. And so we as citizens agree. Is that what's happening? Is that what you will observe by watching this process? If the rules were simple, the way a computer reads a code or script, it's either right or wrong, and if it's wrong, it will not work no matter what you do until the error is fixed. There would be no need for judges. It is the responsibility of a judge to hear your justification and to determine whether or not your intent was honorable. In many cases, then the justice system would have you to know, a valid justification for violating a rule causes reforms in the rule, law, or in policies and procedures because your reasoning is understandable and those who hear the case understand that there are likely to be many other situations where people will be forced to make the same decision justifiably. Of course, this does not happen if it's clear the violation was the result of someone who does not have good intentions and willfully violated the rules with full awareness of the potential harm they would cause prior to committing the violation. A good judge will then explain to you the errors in your justification so that you understand why the rule was created in the first place, so that you are then able to make a better decision if faced with the same problem again in the future.
Mr. Clerk, IB1.
The next item is the receipt of bids pursuant to invitation of bids scheduled this day pursuant to the state law. Public notice having been inserted in the local press by the city clerk to accept bids for a non-exclusive telecommunications franchise agreement with a term of 5 years in the city's right of way, subject to certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. How many bids have been received?
One, sir.
Please read the bid and mark it for identification.
Metro Fiber Networks, Inc. hereby submits its bid for a non-exclusive franchise agreement in the city of Norfolk per the press release posted in the Virginia Pilot on August 15, 2023, titled Invitation for Bids and Notice of Public Hearing for a Non-Exclusive Franchise for the Use of the City's Rights of Way. The bid is in accordance with the draft ordinance and franchise agreements, and Metro Fiber Networks, Inc. hereby agrees to abide by the terms and conditions set forth in the city's preferred form of proposed franchise agreement. And I will mark this Metro Fiber Networks, Inc.
Mr. Clerk, are there any additional bids offered? If there are no additional bids offered, I declare the bidding closed. Is there a recommendation from the city staff regarding the bid received from Metro Fiber Networks, Inc.?
The recommendation is to continue it to the September 12th meeting to allow the administration to review its terms.
Is there a motion to continue the matter until the next meeting of the City Council on September 12, 2023, to receive the recommendation from city staff and to consider bid from Metro Fiber Networks, Inc.?
I so move.
I second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
The motion is to continue until September the 12th for discussion. Mrs. Doyle.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson.
Aye.
Mrs. McClellan.
Aye.
Mr. Page. Aye. Ms. Royster.
Aye.
Mr. Smeagol.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Dr. Alexander.
Aye. PH1. R1.
R1 is an ordinance accepting the bid submitted by Metro Fiber Networks, Inc. for a long-term wireless facilities franchise agreement with a term of 5 years in the city's rights of way. Dispense with the charter requirement for reading the ordinance twice and adopt with the effective date. Mrs. Doyle.
Aye.
Mrs. Johnson.
Aye.
Mrs. McClellan.
Aye.
Mr. Page.
Aye.
Ms. Royster.
Aye.
Mr. Smeagol.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Dr. Alexander.
Aye. R2.
There must be a victim to be charged with any violation. The victim is either an individual person or an entire community defined as one entity, like the state or the city, where people collectively are victims civilly. Example, you lied or stole, or criminally. Example, you hurt or killed. Then the question is always, were you aware you caused harm? If not, once made aware, did you continue to cause harm or allow harm to continue? Please know that I speak from personal and professional experience. It is always the right choice to do the right thing, regardless of what you have been told. The truth is always an absolute defense. For the record, this is also given in the Bible as guidance in Romans 13 and in Mark 11. And then I have shared with you several links to videos that speak in more detail about how the justice system is misused and how it could be reformed to ensure we all feel safe, healthy, and happy.